And welcome to another episode of My Idaho Friends. Yet again, I am your host, Jaime Lima, and thank you for tuning in. As always, huge shout out to Argos Productions, Erica, Justin, sweet baby James out in the back, making sure that we're looking slick and everything is running on time and perfect. Perfect. We're just gonna go with that. Big day today, because it's now almost summer and the daylight is coming in sooner and going down later. Anyways, Idaho, don't bother with that. Big day today, big awesome sauce day today, because our guest today is my buddy Sean Wainwright from Phoenix Fire Games. On man, and we're gonna geek out on some game type stuff. So you have been forewarned. If you're into games, you're gonna definitely want to tune in for the whole thing. Sean, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm great.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so you're great. I'm great. It's a perfect day. It's sunny outside. It's going to be like 84 degrees. Let's do this.
All right.
So, Sean, tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me a little bit about your business, please.
Sure. So I've, been in Idaho for 20 years almost. So Phoenix Fire Games, if you haven't heard of us already, we're a tabletop game store. Mm-hmm. And so board games, card games, not video games. And that still comes up even after all these years. We've been in business for 10 and a half years in Meridian, and it's been wonderful. And we've grown the community from there, and the city has grown around us. So
fantastic. So 10 years plus to dedicate to a business that is very niche into a great hobby that both you and I share.
Right.
And we're going to dive into that. Don't you worry about it. So it's funny that you say, 10 years in business, you're wearing a 10-year anniversary t-shirt for Extra Life, which is a great group. It's a great nonprofit. And, usually I ask my guests, where were you 10 years ago? But I think we're going to have to pull it farther back, because that 10 years now is just a little bit, it fits too well into this cookie cutter jar. Where was Sean 15 years ago?
15 years ago, so we're looking at 2006. So 15 years ago, I was actually in Seattle.
Okay.
So I moved here, so technically it's 14 years ago I moved here. So 15 years ago, I was in Seattle, working for a large pest control company, learning the ins and outs of managing, employees and staff and everything else, getting ready, starting our family. Our first baby was born 14 years ago. So, Wow.
Look at that. The timing. I just knew.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, look at me. Pulled that out.
So, very different place though in my life.
Right.
Just working, I think. So at that time, 15 years is actually, it's funny. It's a great time for you to ask. 15 years ago, I had 6 jobs. I was learning pest control so I could run the spot. Right. But because my wife had started to, she left her job so we could start our family. Mm-hmm. I had to pick up the slack, and she made more money than I did at the time. So I had to pick up extra jobs. So I had another full-time job working in self-storage, okay. and then I had part-time jobs. I worked at Hilton Hotels doing garage maintenance and management and stuff, cleaning up after whatever people leave in garbage cans and stuff.
Right.
And I put up signs for new condos and new homes, you see all the stakes in the grass with the signs on them. I went around in the morning and dropped those off, and I picked them all up a couple days later. And then I managed a rental home for one of my in-laws with, it was a multi-unit place. Okay. And stuff. Lots of work. Slept about an hour and a half a day.
Totally worth it.
So yeah, it was a long 6 months, but yeah.
You did that for 6 months. Yeah. 6 jobs for 6 months. Yeah. The price we pay to start a family.
Yep. Yeah. Worth it though.
Absolutely. Right. Oh gosh, man. Do you tell your kid that story? Your oldest?
Now that she's older than I was when I had my first job, and I bring that up with her quite a bit. I'm like,
it's hard.
I was working.
It's a flex, man. It's a dad flex. You have to do it. How could you not? It's you know what? You're complaining about mowing the grass.
Right. Yeah.
guess what? I have a whole different bag of cookies that I got to unpack with my poor children as they start getting older, because I'm going to do my best not to be like that like immigrant dad, that was like climbing uphill both ways with a 50-pound load in their back when there was no running water or no electricity. But again, I digress. It's not about me. This is about you. Yeah. I'll stop protecting.
I get it. And it's hard. It is hard not reminding them of like the struggles we went through, because we did that so they don't have to, right? And so like you appreciate the fact that like they don't have to go work right now.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's things that she wants and stuff, but we've worked hard enough to be able to provide those things.
Right.
So there's a balance between telling them you need to learn these things versus enjoy the fact that you don't have to do these things.
Yeah, if she wants that new Kickstarter, Kemet's coming out, and I'm excited about it, and like, you gotta do some work.
Yeah.
Probably like 3 people got that, and that was
right. I know.
I'm excited about that Kickstarter. By the way, we'll go and dive into that later. So that's really cool. And then at one point in time, you guys welcome, your daughter, into the world. And then what turned the needle for you guys? So you decided like we're leaving, Washington, and we're going to move to Idaho.
So actually, it was the pest control job. So after I was done training, I was being taught how to like run a location.
Gotcha.
So once that was over with, they were like, "Cool, now we're going to send you somewhere." So Boise was the office that opened.
Somewhere.
Yeah. So so they were like, "You're moving to Idaho," and I was like, "Where?"
From Seattle to.
Yeah. I had only driven through here before then. Family in Utah, so I'd only driven through here. So I was like, I think I know where that is. Sure. Mm-hmm. Came out here. It was the middle of July. It was 105 degrees when we landed. Immediately hated it. Everything was slower. There was, 2 lanes on the freeway,
right.
But we made our home here. So we moved here about a month and a half after that first like travel out here to find a place, and started working in Meridian, and so
All right. Are you loving it or still bitter about it?
We've grown to love it, and a lot of it has to do with the community and how it's grown and how we've become a part of it. If after those first couple years, I wasn't in the pest control industry anymore. I took another job somewhere else, and so I could see myself moving out of here at that time. We had another kid, and so. So then you're like, well, all right, we'll stay, and we'll see how things work out and
figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to start connecting some dots. I don't want to make assumptions, but while you were already in Seattle, you were already gaming.
A little bit, yeah. So it was 2001. My father-in-law visited us for Christmas and we did 12 games of Christmas, and every day leading up to Christmas, he had a new board game. 2001, long time ago as far as the gaming industry goes.
Right.
There were less games, but some of the notable games that people recognize, Settlers of Catan was a thing, now known as just Catan. Ticket to Ride had just come out. And so there were a lot of board games. To me, though, before then, board games were Scrabble and Life and Monopoly. I had not grown up as a board gamer.
Right.
I grew up as a video gamer and stuff. So it was all new, and it opened my eyes to board games when he did that. They were wonderful games compared to what I had done before,
Right.
And our family fell in love with them. My wife, myself, and then our in-laws, our brother-in-law and my brother-in-law and his wife. We were all part of that whole thing and just started loving games, and we started playing more games.
Nice.
There weren't a lot of stores in that area at the time. Back then, Wizards of the Coast, that makes Magic the Gathering, owned a lot of physical locations, and those were the game stores. It was like, think of it like Hollywood Video or whatever. Like if you wanted to get a board game, you went to a Wizards of the Coast game store. Little small mom and pop shops and stuff weren't as much a thing in most areas. They've been around forever, but wasn't as popular. So that was our experience.
That was your
when it came to
intro, and it
games.
was just
Yeah.
right around that timeline. And it's your father-in-law's. He was the catalyst.
Yes, he was.
That
Absolutely.
is
yeah.
crazy. That is really, really cool. The games that you mentioned, for anybody watching, Settlers of Catan, Ticket to Ride, which you mentioned just came out about that time. That's kind of how I got started.
Yeah.
My cousins got me started on Settlers of Catan, and I played it once and then got my butt kicked like terribly. So I said, we got to play again. And my cousins and I, we're out of a grand old big family. There's mostly in Panama. The four of us are the ones that are like here in Idaho, and I will come, back when I was stationed in California at the time, and I was like just hanging out and just trying to like have that quality family time because they're the closest thing to siblings that I have. And one of them introduced the game, and of course they all knew how to play, so I showed up and get my butt kicked, and I said, we're gonna play again. And at that time, I think only one of them had kids. The rest of us didn't. It's like, fast forward, we started at 7, and it was like 3:30 in the morning. And one of them's like, we should go to sleep.
Right.
I was like, all right. And I always seen that's how they get you hooked.
Yeah.
I should probably make that drug reference. That's probably not, that was not nice. But that's how they get you hooked. It was usually a game like that. And
Yep.
Catan was the gateway, the gateway game for many.
And it still is.
And it still is.
Still
That is
is.
true.
It's amazing that it is.
It is. It is
20,
solid.
25 years. The 25th anniversary actually just came out last year for that game.
And it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. It just seems like, well, that was like no big deal. I was really lucky when I was stationed in California and eventually got stationed in North Carolina. We ended up making a friend, and he has his own game studio. So he makes games like tabletop games and card games mostly.
Okay.
And then also works on the video game space. So like straight to like phone or app and iOS type stuff, and then some like indie games for Microsoft and his Xbox platform. And then he kept introducing like all these games, and then all of a sudden, like I was just always playing Catan, and he's the one that brought Ticket to Ride, and then he brought King of Tokyo, and it just kept escalating from there. And like next thing you know, it's like there's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Not to quote a line. So that's really cool. That's so cool, and I like the fact that it became like a family thing.
Yeah. Very much so. We all actually, when we moved out here, we all moved together. The entire family moved here.
Oh wow!
It won't go into details. There was a tragedy in the family, so we all bonded together, and so we all moved to Idaho together. They were all flexible with their professions and stuff at the time, and I was the one that had a new job and stuff. So they all traveled out here with us, and that all eventually became the startup for our store. Was that we were all here together and wanted to do something together. So
that you all love.
Yeah.
So what's your experience like then? Because there might be some people watching and they're like, what are they talking about? Okay, so we're still a little bit in the past over here. I love the fact that you're sharing this. I appreciate it because you just give like that rich story and context into what you're doing right now with your gaming store. Because back then, like you mentioned, that wasn't really a thing.
Right.
You couldn't people in the hobby didn't have like a spot, like a commercial spot to go and meet other players or get together with their own friends to run like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or play Magic the Gathering. And then now there's, like you mentioned, there's so many more games now as to compare to before. That wasn't there. So what was your experience like? How outside of your father-in-law, how it came that the hobby grew with you and your family?
So once we moved out here, so when we were in Seattle, we would go down to the store and just pick up a new game, right? And again, there weren't that many of them, but we just kept interested in them, and we kept playing the ones that we had from that Christmas. After we moved here, we weren't interested. We weren't going to start a gaming store after we moved here. That was totally not even on the radar. Right. But we sought out places to be able to buy games like we had in Seattle. And there weren't any in the local area. We lived in Caldwell. And the closest store that even resembled a game store was in Boise. Now, having lived in Seattle, grew up in California when I was younger. Driving from Caldwell to Boise is not really a major deal. It is to people here.
Yeah.
But it's
Back
not.
then also, I mean, 10 years ago, that is like, wonk.
Yeah, right. You know, it's even now. I mean, it's whatever. It's 20 miles. You know, it's no big deal. But it's a different mindset.
You're not stopping at 15.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
Yeah, or the 405.
Yeah,
right?
I spent
Like,
plenty of time down there. I get it.
But it still wasn't as convenient, and so we just kind of picked up some games. We kept on playing games together since the whole family was together. But we digressed more into video games because it wasn't as prevalent, and there weren't as many people. You know, shocking.
Yeah.
Idaho doesn't have as many people as Seattle. I know nobody knows that, but. So
we're all learning here.
Yeah, so we just kind of kept playing whatever we were playing, and got together as a family all the time and stuff. And we all actually lived within a mile of each other where we had moved. We all bought homes really close, and so we just get together all the time. But then I was working just a lot. We had another baby, right? All that. So there wasn't. I didn't really have my finger on the pulse as far as like how board gaming was, growing back then, and it was still kind of small. Like this, we're still talking 2008, 2009,
Right.
When the housing market was crashing,
Right.
and so that was, it changed a lot in our lives as far as jobs and money and everything else, and that was when we started looking to do something. We had a friend who had a game store in Utah, and it had been open for about 5 years at that time. And it was, it was a small hobby store, something that he kind of loved, and it was a passion. But, he was able to show positive income and revenue, and he knew the popular games. And at that time, it's not... there was no BGG Top 100 back then that was, full of all of these hot titles that everybody has heard of.
So Idaho, I got you. BGG. Board Game Geek.
Yes, Board Game Geek. It's actually a thing.
Very popular website. You'll find Sean and I there, what we're playing, what we're looking for,
Yeah, it's basically the go-to forum, for talking about board games.
Yeah.
It's like Reddit for geeks.
I have to translate for you, Sean. Don't worry
That's
about
all
it.
right.
I got you.
Yeah. So we reached out to him, and we were looking to do something together to start up a new business as a whole family. And after we talked with him, it actually came down to a sandwich shop, like a franchise sandwich shop, Togo's. If nobody around here has really heard of it, because there's only been one ever in Boise. It's like the Quiznos was of the West Coast.
Man, throwing it back.
Right? Yeah, right. I know. The fact that that doesn't even really exist anymore is weird, because that was the hot thing when we moved here. But it's like Subway but good. So it's
Right.
And so that was we loved that place because we used to go there all the time in Seattle, and where I grew up in California, there was a major sandwich shop. So we were looking at that as a possible, let's open the first Togo's in the Boise area, or let's open a game store. And we broke down the profits and the revenues and where we could go with it. And thankfully, we chose game store.
Right. Yeah, thankfully.
So, and then because of the housing market crash, the game industry, the tabletop gaming industry, exploded. Because people didn't have the money, didn't want to go out to movies, didn't want to buy expensive entertainment hobbies. And more people were at home and started designing board games and coming up with new ideas. And then you could buy a board game and you could play it over and over and over again.
Replayability was a big factor. It was a lot more. I'm so glad you brought that, because now I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's going to be a whole new set of questions. And so we're going to put a pin of where we're at right now, and we're going to exist a little bit here, a little bit in the past, because it's important, I believe, not only to the hobby and to your business, but like anybody's watching that doesn't understand, right? Because to this day, I'm sure you experience it, because I certainly experienced it. And we'll come back that the housing market, when it crashed in 2008 and whatnot. when I say board games to some friends, oh, you're gonna bring Monopoly? Because I'm not gonna play Monopoly. I'm not 12 anymore, Jaime.
Well, that was me 20 years ago. I mean,
yeah, and I was like, I don't want to play Monopoly either. Like everybody's just trying to buy Boardwalk. Like, yeah, like I get it. Like, or everybody, like the Game of Life or playing Sorry, and all these games. Which like there's a time and place for those games. I'm not speaking ill of them, but I certainly didn't want to play that. And then there was a total opposite where it's like, okay, so I want to play something that is a little bit more, we'll just go with the word sophisticated. And then there was Risk. And it's just like, yeah, Risk is great, but man, like, like I got things to do. Right. And like in order for it to be fun, you needed more than just one friend, you needed a few more people playing in order to like really get into it and play for hours on end. Nothing wrong with Risk either, but I just would like perhaps I would like your insight. So like you mentioned, that was one of the catalysts, and I agree with you. I'm not saying that it might not have been the one and only thing, but when that needle got turned as far as like tabletop entertainment and people had perhaps a little bit more time in their hands, not only to play the games but to make games, design games, and have better games. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that was like the big thing that happened, and then all of a sudden the hobby and the industry as a whole like started blowing up, and it's now what it is now, in which you have just hundreds of people on YouTube, teaching you how to play games, or streaming in Twitch playing games, or like now you have like this big grand like productions of games. Like if you end up buying like one single game and you want to have all the expansions, you're looking anywhere between like $100 to $1,000. Very big range. Yeah. So I would just like your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I mean, like every change in an industry usually has some kind of reason, right? Some spark. Mm-hmm. I do. I really think that that economic, crash made this change because the people who designed board games back then were coming up with something that was replayable, that had everlasting value instead of a one-time hit. And that's why, I mean, all of the entertainment industry as a whole took a huge blowback from that. It was because people didn't want to spend the little hard-earned money they had during that crash on watching a movie, right? Going to a thing. And so when they were designing board games at that time, that became more of a focus point, was how can we make this where it's ongoing, it's replayable over and over and over again, and the rules change because, again, there was Monopoly. There was, very few things that had a lot of really deep strategy, story building, all of that. It was mostly roll some dice, collect some resources, do a thing, which again, Tom, love you, but like, it's people wanted more than that, and the designers wanted to give them more than that. So I really do think that was a huge catalyst for that. Now, I mean, you talked a little bit about, now there's YouTube and people teaching games and stuff. That is more of a byproduct of the last couple of years. Right, yeah. That's but each step has grown that industry. I think that was the major one that really, really kicked it off. Had the housing market not crashed, had the economy not crashed the way that it did, I don't know. I don't see tabletop games being where they are now. I really don't.
Yeah, I know. I would agree. I think maybe like what I would have seen is a little of what we see now, where it's like, and we'll go into genres here in a little bit. I'm not going to let you get away without dipping into that. And then that's when everybody's really going to tune us off. But,
deck building.
Right, exactly. Right. What are you talking about? Like, building your engine? What? But you got like big companies with big hits in different industries. A great example is World of Warcraft, right? So Blizzard, video game, just role-playing game online, or excuse me, for anybody that's watching, MMORPG, the thing. All the consonants with a vowel in there. They will come up with a board game that is essentially a collectible because they only made so many of them. And like the game, from what I understand, it's like no offense, it's okay at best. You know, it's not like I gotta get that, son. You know, and like all of a sudden I see somebody on like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or BGG, and it's like they want like $700 for it, and it's like good on you. If that's what's worth to you, then how about it? Somebody else out there might pay for that. But that's kind of what I think is like, well, maybe we would have had this like games based on movies and games based on video games, but they would have a little bit more of like a like the Resident Evil board game perhaps would have more like would have been like a version of Clue, rather than like what you get now, and which is very thematic, and there's like a strategy to it, and some of it is more has a little bit more substance than others. But like I also I'm glad that things turned out the way they did, because you have such a wide variety and such a and then there's just something for everyone, which I think is what your store offers.
Yes, well, yeah, and when we opened, I mean, it was easy to. A lot of people have asked me, like, what would it take to open a game store today, right? When we opened, we picked the top 200 selling products in the gaming industry, like card games, board games, miniatures games, everything. Mm-hmm. We picked the top 200 products, and that was more than enough. It wasn't really, I mean, that was a lot. We had a lot of things that like weren't really all that great because we went as deep as 200 back then.
Right.
Fast forward to 2019, there was over 7,000 new board games between expansions and new games and stuff that came out.
Right.
Like, just incredible difference, right? You can't carry enough. Yeah. So picking the top 200 is difficult, but you have a variety to do that from. But when we opened, like that was how small the board gaming industry was back then. Mm-hmm. Is picking the top 200 meant you were getting pretty deep into expansions of games that like, maybe you would sell like 5 copies in a year.
Right.
So it was still very, very different. But yeah, I mean, it was exciting.
Right. So, and it has worked out, because here we are 10 years later.
Yeah.
Which brings us to today. All right. So where is your store at?
So in Meridian. So downtown Meridian, there's Albertsons. There's a big lot shopping center. It's called Cherry Plaza. We're dead center in the middle of that shopping center.
Nice. Okay. And you guys have been in that same location this whole time?
The same building.
The same building.
Yeah. So when we first started out, small business, and we only had 200 products, right, to start off with. So it was 1,750 square feet was the total space. And we actually had that cut out of a Chinese restaurant that used to be in that building. And so we had a 250 square foot storage space out of that. So in this 1,500 square foot spot, we had tables and we had shelves. So it wasn't very big, but it still took a lot to fill that space because of how little the stock was back then. And we didn't do it. We didn't do it with $1 million in the bank or any of that kind of stuff. That was just really quick, like caveat to why we didn't end up opening like a sandwich shop or a franchise. Even back then, you had to have a ton of money, like liquid value to your name, before one of the big companies or anybody would like even talk to you.
Right. Yeah.
And that was, we wanted to start a business so we could make money, hopefully.
That catch-22. I want to be a business owner. You have a franchise, but you need me to be wealthy before I can start.
Right. Yeah. So so we did it on a hope, right? And stuff. But now, so we about a year and a half, and the reason why we chose Meridian, really, really quick, is that one store that was in Boise. That was it on the entire west side of the Treasure Valley. And so if you wanted to have a board game, you drove into Boise.
Right.
And so we wanted to provide something that was on this side of the valley. Or on that side, because we're in Boise now. But so Meridian was a good spot. I'd already been working there with the previous company and stuff. And so I knew the area, and I knew that it was growing. By the way, Meridian only had like 43,000 people in it when we opened our store.
Yeah, 10 years ago, you're really looking at a whole completely different Meridian, Eagle area.
But so when we opened there, that space was big enough, and it worked with our small budget. But a year and a half, we got really busy because there wasn't a game store on that side of the valley until we moved in, until we opened and stuff. So we became very, very popular very fast, and we went through growing pains. So we had to immediately find a bigger space in a year and a half. We wanted to stay in the same building. There was a spot available down the hallway. So we moved down the hallway, and that was 2,400 square feet. So it was bigger as far as we were concerned, but different because it was down the hallway. It was like, it's a strip mall with like an internal hallway kind of thing. So we were now out of public view. So you only really came to us if you were coming to the strip mall or you knew we were there already.
Yeah, there was that no foot traffic was except for somebody that wasn't familiar would be like, oh.
Yeah. So it made a difference, and it was rough. It was actually kind of rough to start when we moved back there, but our community's awesome, and and kept us going. So then we moved. So that would have been about another year and a half after that. The Idaho liquor store that was always in the front of the strip mall moved down the hallway, remodeled a big space that they wanted, and so they left their space vacant that they'd had for like 28 years. It was right up front. It was twice the size.
Right.
We wanted to go back up front and take advantage of it, and so we did, and that's where we are now. So it was almost 8 years ago.
Wow. So what's that, 4,800 feet or so?
It's a little over 4,000 square feet.
Okay, yeah.
But we were able to, since they were there forever, they had to gut it because it wasn't up to code anymore and stuff. So we were able to kind of build it however we wanted to, and so we designed it the way that we did and everything, and we've been there ever since. So and it's been fantastic. It's been great being back up front. It's made a difference. That walk-up traffic really, really does matter.
Yeah, it does.
And
visibility.
And our community has just grown and grown as the city has grown around us.
So, you look at it now. Let's not even. I mean, we're gonna go all the way from like 10 to now. Your stock was 200 games.
Yeah.
What's in stock right now?
I mean, I have 200 games in one shelving unit, now, right? In my back room, in our storage room, we have 200 games. So it's big difference. Like our entire store, that 1,750 square foot, right, is a little bit smaller than the carpet space we have in our current location now, which is our primary retail, spot of the store. So when you think of that was the chairs, that was the front counter, that was everything, including the storage unit and the bathrooms, was all part of that 1,750 square feet. All of that space is now shelving of board games, and card games and stuff like that. But so it's a big difference. We've turned down 200 copies of 200 different titles and stuff in the last year.
Just ballpark figure, I guess, then, because I'm not gonna let you get away without answering. At least give me a ballpark figure. Like, you had 200 games on your shelves back then. Like, what do you think you have now?
So we have, I'll just tell you, how about SKUs?
Okay, fair. Yes.
So
perfect.
we have 4,917 SKUs. Individual.
So 4,900 different different items.
Yeah.
So to include games and then like game paraphernalia and things like that.
Yeah, expansions, everything. Right.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was
great.
Again, it was 200.
Yeah.
That was 200 SKUs. That was the top 200 selling items. So that included paints and
dice,
magic releases, all that stuff. So it is almost 25-fold.
Yes.
Of that, and that is just, and then again, that's not the top 200. It's not the top 4,900. It's the 4,900 that we want in our store that now we think our community wants.
Right. Like probably play some of them, and there's other ones like I hope I can play it sometime.
Yeah.
But it's,
So big difference.
Wow. That's amazing. That's awesome. What would you attribute your continued success?
Community. 100%. It's, it's easy. The reason I'll put the community first is because it's easy to say our staff is amazing, and we hope that they are. Yeah. We hope that it's a beautiful dog. We hope that they're amazing because their goal is to just, to share their passion, right? And they do. That's why they work for us, though, because they're part of our team. That's who we all are. So the community is really what builds our store. Because we have sometimes these crazy ideas, and we're a very passionate business when it comes to doing charities, and we can go into that tangent in another time and stuff. I'm wearing one, but like it's a big passion of ours. Mm-hmm. But we can scream at the top of our lungs and say we want to do this. It takes the community to be able to actually pull that off, and so without the Meridian and expanding Boise and Treasure Valley community backing us and believing in what we believe in and supporting us when we have some of these crazy ideas and notions. Without that, I mean, we would have been one of those 90% of small businesses that closed in the first year.
Right. I mean, 10 years is a good run.
Yeah.
And still going strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are you thinking? Are you going to continue to lean forward and hard on that location, or is there going to be any plans to perhaps have another location of Phoenix Fire Games?
With the actual, as far as Phoenix Fire Games as a I guess the main location, mm-hmm. we're good where we are. Mm-hmm. We're actually working on renewing our lease with our landlord. Nice. And everything, and doing some remodels that may happen this year, may not happen this year, depending on codes and stuff.
And the price of lumber.
And blowing out some walls and all this stuff, right? So we're staying there mostly because, again, this is where we've been home. We looked at a lot of locations over the years and stuff, mm-hmm. just to keep an eye out for the different growing parts of Meridian, but our community knows where we are, and we've grown that around us, and so that place is good.
Nice.
Not saying we would never expand to different parts of town. Even tried it once. We had a little bit of kind of a franchise thing in Nampa. Mm-hmm. Differences of opinion on how to run the business, so we part ways, years ago, and that's fine. But it was a learning experience. Right. So So we've talked about expanding and trying new things and stuff in different parts of the valley. So mm-hmm. Maybe coming soon.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
But as far as the house goes, just what we are and who we are.
Yeah.
Our space is the right size. The bigger we've grown into this space, right? The only thing we would need more of would be storage. The actual usable space for retail and for tabletop gaming where we are is good. Yeah. We think it's too much space would be too much space. Mm-hmm. So
and if you have storage issues, you can always just leave them in my garage.
Sure, absolutely.
New in shrink, I don't know what happened.
Listen, I moved 5 minutes away from the store a few years back, mostly because I wanted to, and we have a storage shed in our backyard, and I use a third of my garage for stuff, and it's a convenience thing, right? But that is storage as far as that goes. So, yeah.
All right, that's awesome. All right, now let's dive into a little bit of the I was gonna say the deeper side. I don't know. I'm gonna end up saying something weird and inappropriate, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Genres. Okay.
Yes.
So anybody watching, you and I have been spitting some game. They're like, I don't know. I have no clue what these guys are talking about. What would you say, are the most popular types of games that are rotating to your store right now?
Cooperative games and campaign style games.
Okay. What is a campaign style game?
So campaign style games. So think of Dungeons and Dragons as a ongoing campaign. Think of, and if you're a video gamer, think of, following quest lines, and every time you complete a quest, you get a new quest.
Right.
That's a campaign style game. So they've turned that into board games, and it's become a growing genre. But they are games that you play with the same people, preferably. Right. Because you're growing the story as you go. That has been the largest growing genre by far, especially in the last year.
Wow, it's really in the last year.
Yeah, because, people are like, hey, we're at home. We need to play a game that we can't play with other people.
Yeah. Don't you know the Mad Mage? That type of thing. Yeah. What would you say? Which will be your favorite in that genre?
So favorite
or top two?
Yeah. So favorite as far as campaign goes was one that we played recently called My City. kind of a unique. You spend more time in the game swearing and being angry and frustrated. It is a very thinky, very Tetris-y, like, fitting spaces kind of thing while you're trying to grow it, and you're putting stickers and different things on the board and getting really angry all the time, but super fun. So that would be like my favorite, I guess, just because of the excitement and involvement. Yeah.
And just to clarify something, because anybody watching, so I have a copy of that game too, and I'm yet to find the perfect 3 people to play it with, which is also key because I call it a legacy game, but it's you can still campaign, whichever, but there's not a single thing about that game screams what people that are not in the hobby will consider Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Which is a thing that I run into. It's like, let's play some games. It's like, I'm not going to put on my wizard hat on, Jaime, and sit on your dark basement and roll dice with you. It's like, that's not what I'm trying to do. It has nothing to do with that. Just clarifying a few things here and there.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's something that I don't know if, you probably do not run into it because you're surrounded by this community that knows and understands the hobby really, really well. I love games. I'm not nearly as deep into them as you are. I just know the games that I like.
I would say you probably are more deep into like a lot of stuff than I am when it comes to games. But
perhaps. Okay. Fair. But I know that I have my crew. They say, okay, we're gonna play a game, and this game is gonna take 2 hours, maybe 3. If we're bringing somebody new that we gotta teach them how to play. All right, and then that turns into a 6-hour game because then you want to play it again. At least one hopes. And then there's when I play with my wife when it's like I want to play a game like Gravwell. Which what would you consider a game like Gravwell?
What's the best genre?
It's pretty unique.
Yeah, I mean, because it's real time. Because you're moving, you're playing cards at the same time, so it has a little bit of a real-time aspect to it.
A little bit of a deck building, sort of.
Bidding, yeah.
There's something for
everyone.
It is very unique. Is what I'm trying.
I love it. It's very unique.
That's a terrible example, but King of Tokyo. She likes to play King of Tokyo.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So just rolling dice. And,
you're rolling dice. You're
press
pulling
your
cards,
luck.
and you're pressing your luck.
Yeah.
You have a strategy, but it doesn't matter. My 6-year-old sometimes can win, and you're like, ah. So there's something for everyone. Anyways, just wanted to take the time to clarify that because that's a very good game that I'm yet to play. But when you're into the hobby, and now I'm really gonna, fly my freak flag around. You might watch some YouTube videos of other people playing because I want to know how to play this game. And once I get a chance to teach it to somebody, I'm gonna make it as efficient and effective as possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Which brings probably the only thing that is the true challenge about introducing the hobby to somebody else. Teaching them how to play games.
Right, yeah. And for a lot of things, again, with the expansion of YouTube and everything over the last few years, like that's a wonderful thing for the gaming industry because it does take that reading the rule book out of the equation for a lot of people who don't like to do that. There are some people that are phenomenal at it. I will plug Joe at our store. Like he is phenomenal at reading rule books and teaching them to players. Yep. Not me. So not something that I do. So I'm thankful for all the people who do put together these videos and stuff on playthroughs. One of the reasons why I think these campaign legacy style games have been our biggest seller is because we sell the passion of discovering it yourself as you go. Because you can't watch a video on the entire game because of spoilers. Right. Every movie fan and TV show fan, especially people who've been watching all the new Marvel stuff recently, all know spoilers are terrible and people hate those.
Right.
And so these types of games, you have to avoid those. And so you can't watch a playthrough of them because you'll learn everything and then you don't discover it yourself. So that's been a thing where people have really, really locked into is that idea of not being able to know ahead of time, not being able to just learn how is this going to come out. And doing it. So, and we've been passionate about that. We've enjoyed it. So we tell people about it.
Right. No, yeah. I got my CD on your, you told me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, snagged it.
And the other game that I would say that every board gamer now has heard about it. And anybody who's on Board Game Geek sees it up on the top of the list all the time. But for people who aren't in the gaming industry, Gloomhaven. You know, and that is the like, what's the word, quintessential? That is the game that is like, look, it is full of spoilers. If you watch somebody playing it, you potentially ruin your own game.
Yeah, your experience.
Because of it was designed in such a wonderful way that that you discover so much of it as you go. When you unlock things, there's locked boxes and
and you don't need this to be this very savvy like dungeon master type person.
No.
It's an analog, it's tabletop game, but it's plug and play is best way to, like, I would want to describe it to somebody.
Sure. No? Yeah, absolutely.
Gloomhaven. I played it. It's time commitment now. It's just like,
yeah. When you tell people, this has over 150 hours worth of playtime in it, there's what?
This was like, and just then setting it up.
Then you remind them that their World of Warcraft game says they've played for 39 days of their life. It changes the perspective, right? But but when you break it down into like, it's an hour to an hour and a half every time you play the game. Okay, fine. Yeah. That's more doable, right? But it's different. Every hour and a half that you spend in the game is different.
Dude, so, Gloomhaven aside, because I have my opinions, and it's a fun game. It's just the time commitment in order to play it regularly. It's I got young kids. My wife is not into gaming, which kills me, but that's okay. Happily married, almost 12 years. Love you, honey. Like my thing is, like, I think I got into the point where I'm not gonna be buying any games for a while. Famous last words, right?
Right. I know.
I'm just saying that so my wife, when like she never watches anyway, but like there's proof on YouTube now. But I feel like I've curated my collection, and I'm not just collecting. I play my games. Some collectors out there, good on you. I don't know how you do not play your games. It would drive me nuts. Right. But separate conversation. That's a whole separate episode with a mental health professional. But like the ability of having these games and getting really familiar with them, and then like start playing them with my children as they get older.
Sure.
And it's just that's something like, because I also like, I grew up in front of the screen, right? And like, I turned out okay, but like we have decided now as adults and as parents that we're going to limit the screen time for our kids. And I'm not telling anybody how to do their thing with their children. You parent how you want to parent, and you do the best you can. It's not like we have it figured out. But then I was like, I need an alternative for something, for them to do, and I want to do it with them. Because I do want to play video games with them, but I also don't have the time for that. So it was picking those things. It's like, okay, so they're doing jiu-jitsu, and as they get older, they might want to be doing something else, or soccer, or climbing, or whatever. At one point in time, how can I extend family time, good, awesome quality time, and they're not so like thinking about like, oh man, I gotta hang out with the old man, and this is like, knock on wood, is gonna be the answer to that. Is my strategy.
Sure.
And I'm investing in it way ahead of schedule. And they're already like playing these games, games are like designed for children, other than just memory games, which nothing wrong with those, but it's like, let's do something where we roll some dice and move some little guys around. We're painting miniatures, which is also a whole nother like different, bag of squirrels, let's just call it that. And little by little, I just, hopefully I'm not wrong, and this will be something that I'll be doing with my boys as they continue to grow older with me. Anyways, didn't want to steal your thunder on that.
No. I mean, describing a lot of my household, so that's fine.
What? Oh gosh, we're starting to run out of time, so I gotta move this. There's so many more questions. Where do you see yourself in the business in the future? Near and or far?
Yeah, so I mean, near future, just recovering from this last year, which, again, community has been amazing. Mm-hmm. So in this last year, things were different, but still good. Mm-hmm. So recovering for us is a little bit different than some other small businesses recovering from this year. Recovering for us is slowly moving some of the things back to the way that they were. And one of those is like running events and stuff. So in the near future, I just see us moving a little bit back towards normalcy, hosting big events and, and having more people in the store and all those kind of things. And so that's our near future. And where that brings us is, the unknown. We like our space, like I talked about. I don't think we need to grow as far as a business square footage goes and everything.
Yeah.
But with the stuff that we've learned in the last year, another short-term thing is continuing to grow our online presence. It has made a huge, huge difference for us in this last year. We didn't ship anything in 2019. Like, it wasn't something that we did. We never did that. We ship things every couple days now across the country. Mostly because we had to have an online business for this last year, so we could stay open and stay busy. So that's our short term. Long term, I guess let's call it middle of the road term. The gaming industry is changing. It is definitely going more of a hybrid model in a lot of ways, where there's a lot more digital information, digital gaming combined. Some of the Kickstarters that are out now, a lot of the big Kickstarters have some kind of mobile app or something that you can download for free that accompanies your game.
Augmented reality.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. I mean, we've already plugged some titles, and so whatever. Chronicles of Crime is like, the game is entirely digital. The only physical aspect of the game is these cards with QR codes. But those cards can be reused into any story that they build into the app. And the app to download itself is free. So it's this perfect combined effort of, you need the app and you need the cards.
Right.
But they can put anything they want to in the app for future reference and still use the same cards.
Yeah.
So there's more things that are going that way. And as that happens, collectible card games, Magic the Gathering has been the longest ongoing collectible card game for now. I mean, at least as of now. It's 27 years this year. It has gone, it's still in physical print form, but the digital aspect of the game, the number of players online and everything, and the quality of online play for the game has been improving more and more and more. And this last year has only made that better because more people focused on playing online. So in the medium term, that game is going to change a lot. There will still be people who want to play in person. But there's going to be a lot of people that have gotten used to playing online or are more comfortable playing online. Right. Or now that you can play online, they get to play with people all over the world.
Right.
And so that there's going to be a little bit of I don't know. People want to get in person and then people don't want to get in person. It'll have two different branches. So then long term, it'll be the games that have to be played in person are the ones that we're going to be focusing on. Right. Eventually, just like 10 years ago when there was only 200 titles that we brought in, there'll be a lot of games that go away, and there'll be a lot of new ones that focus on how do you still keep people coming into a store and buying those games. So I think we'll do a lot more in-person events. You talked about painting with your kids. So doing more painting classes, more things that get people physically into the hobby itself.
Right. Oh man.
And and there is. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and we're not going to go too deep into it because of unknown details and stuff. But there's more hybrid models of our type of store that we're looking into, where it's more than just a game store.
Cool.
And so that's something that I think that's the future.
Nice. Absolutely. Yeah. Bring them in and keep them in. Don't let them go anywhere.
Yeah.
Make it like Vegas.
Right. Yeah. Oh, God, if only. Anyways.
I have some thoughts on that. And unfortunately, I don't have too much more time, Sean. We're going to have you on again. Again. It sounds like we have talked about everything. I have so much more to ask you. You have no idea. It's going to blow your mind away. But before I let you keep going,
and before we run out of time, if I could plug...
We're not there yet. No, that's why I'm speeding up, because you're going to get to plug anything and everything you want. I just need to make sure that I knock these things out of the way. No, I got you, boo. You will get what you want at the end, no matter what. Would you ever be involved, or have you ever been involved in any game development?
So I've play tested a lot of games. Yes,
Okay.
I've play tested a lot of games. I don't have a mind for coming up with rules. I don't have a mind for. I'm not an artist. Oh God, by any means or anything. But I enjoy play testing games. I enjoy finding ways to break games and finding ways to improve them based off of what's already there. So I couldn't tell you how to get from A to B, but I can tell you what doesn't work now that you've told me how to get from A to B. Right. So we do a lot of play testing whenever we can. There's publishers that have us on their list. They send us prototypes of games. These days it's more or less online.
Gotcha.
But yes, yeah.
Right. You know, what are your top 2 favorite games, and why are they Root and Cthulhu Wars?
My favorite game, and he knows it, and the designer of the game knows it, everybody knows this, is Lanterns: The Harvest Festival by Christopher Chung. And there is many reasons why it's my favorite game. It is not the most advanced game. It's not the simplest game. It's not, the most, you're not going to get a strategy gamer to be like, this is amazing, but it is one of the most teachable games I've ever played. It is quick. It is involved. Everybody is doing something. It's pretty. I've demoed it to. I've actually played the game. I lost track of count. It was over 20,000 times the last time I had counted how many times I'd played the game, because I've demoed it at big conventions. There's a digital app of the game. I broke the app. I played everything you could do in the app until there was no more. It said, thanks, you're done. I didn't know that was a thing, and neither did he. So that is my favorite game, and I've left it with every in-law that I've traveled with. We demoed everywhere. So that is my favorite game overall because of a lot of different reasons. Other than that, my next favorite game is the one. It's not a single game. It's the one that I'm playing with people where it doesn't matter how long we're taking, whether it's short or long. We're laughing, we're having good conversation. That's my next favorite game. And the reason, and so there's a lot of things that I will play. There's a lot of things I won't play because I feel you can't do that in some games where I can't do that. I should be more specific. Yeah. I can't do that in some games because I have to focus too much on the rules.
Okay. Well, you heard it here, Idaho. Sean Wainwright's favorite game is Root.
They are very cute characters, I'll tell you that.
When we launch Root League, he will be here playing Root League with us. We'll make it like Vegas.
I will play Gravwell with you. I will play that.
Nice. I had some ideas.
The designer of that game is one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life.
That's cool. That's awesome. I play that game with my children a lot. Yeah. My 6-year-old loves it. I mean, he has a great understanding of it. And my wife. So I was like, all right. Okay, I'll have to just save all the other questions for a different time. Please let everybody at home know where they can find you, address of your store, where they can find you online, any social media presence, anything that you would like to promote. Idaho Gift starts today. Anything that you want people to be aware of. I believe you have a rental system,
We're just covering it all for me now. So,
no, but you're going to get to say it. They want you to say it. They don't want me to say it, but just tell them all the things, please.
Sure. All right. So, hi. So, Phoenix Fire Games, we're in Meridian, if you didn't pick that up already, downtown at Cherry, and where Fairview becomes Cherry at Meridian Road. PhoenixFireGames.com, Facebook, Phoenix Fire Games, Instagram, Phoenix Fire Games, Twitter, Phoenix Fire Games. We're simple. We like easy. Yes, so as Jaime mentioned, we do have a board game rental library, and it's cool, and we try and keep it up to date. There's a couple hundred games that are in it. You can take the game home, try it out for a small fee. You bring it back, you love the game, you want to buy the game, you get a new copy of the game, and you take the rental cost off of the price of the new game. So it's a try before you buy kind of system that works out really well. So really quick, let's talk about some of the passions that we have as a store and how you can join us with some of those passions. You'll see I'm wearing an Extra Life t-shirt. So we have been a part of this charity every year for, this will be 9 years. It is a children's miracle network, gaming for 24 hours charity. It started off as mostly video games. We decided to go into the board game realm with it. Started with 5 of us playing games for 24 hours. In 2019, there were over 600 people at Jump playing games for 18 hours because that was all we could get the space for. Thanks, Jump. And then we continued the next day at our store raising money. And we have raised collectively, I think it's over $25,000 for the St. Luke's Children's Hospital. And every year we look to grow that. So we will doing that. It's in November. So keep an eye out for that. We'll talk more about that as we go. The next thing that we're working on, shout out to Big J at 100.3 The X. We are part of the Alzheimer's Association of Idaho community, and this year. So the longest day is in June. We will be doing a big charity promotion for the Alzheimer's Association. So please join us with that. We'll have a lot of fun playing games, raising money for that too. So,
Sean, outstanding. Thank you for sharing, especially your time, your insight about games, sharing about your passions, your family, and the history of what brought Phoenix Fire Games and you and your brand and your community here into the Valley and all over, because many travel to come over and see you and your team over at Phoenix Fire Games. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Idaho,
Yeah.
as always, thank you for tuning in. I know you could be doing other things. Some things to look forward to here. We are recording this. This is not live. We'll be on the YouTubes here in just a little bit, a few days. But you will be seeing on our social media the nonprofits that My Idaho Friends is encouraging you to donate or raise awareness during the My Idaho Give campaign. So more on that. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. Make sure you follow us on Instagram. Make sure you follow us on, I think that's it. Oh no, we got the Twitter too, but there's not much there. I'll get to it. Other than that, as always, thank you to Argos Productions, the whole team. Please, once we're on YouTube, check out the content, like it if you like it, subscribe if you like it, check out our partners. You have the links for Argos Productions, got the links for all the nonprofits that we're going to be supporting and advertising, during the My Idaho Gives campaign. And again, thank you very much to Sean and Idaho. You get out there and be kind to somebody. Cheers.